Zara was sold. Not figuratively. Literally. One signature. One debt. One desperate father who couldn't look her in the eye as he signed her life away to men in expensive suits who smiled like sharks. She was 23 years old, standing in her childhood living room, watching her father's hand tremble as he pushed the contract across the table. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight. But the men had guns tucked under their jackets, and her father had tears streaming down his face, and her younger brother was asleep upstairs, oblivious to the fact that his sister was being traded like livestock to pay for his medical bills. So Zara didn't scream. She didn't run. She stood there, numb, as they told her to pack a single bag. 24 hours later, she was on a plane to Seoul, South Korea, sitting beside a woman who refused to make eye contact, who handed her a new passport with a name that wasn't hers, and who whispered only once during the entire flight, "Don't try to run. They'll find you. And they'll make it worse." Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Zara stared out the window at the clouds below and wondered if this was what dying felt like. The loss of everything familiar. The severing of every thread that connected you to the person you used to be. She didn't cry. She was too angry to cry. Angry at her father. Angry at the world. Angry at herself for not fighting harder. When the plane landed, she was escorted through a private terminal, past customs without a single question asked, and into a black car with tinted windows that smelled like leather and something faintly metallic. Blood, maybe. Or just her imagination running wild. The driver didn't speak. Didn't even glance at her in the rearview mirror. He just drove through the neon-lit streets of Seoul, past skyscrapers that pierced the sky like glass daggers, until the city fell away and they entered a neighborhood where the houses were hidden behind walls and gates, where silence was a currency and privacy was law. They stopped in front of a mansion that looked like it had been carved from stone and shadow. Modern. Cold. Beautiful in the way a knife is beautiful. The gates opened without a sound, and the car rolled up a long driveway lined with perfectly trimmed trees that looked like they'd been measured with a ruler. Zara's heart hammered in her chest. This was it. The place where she'd be used. Broken. Destroyed. She'd heard the stories. Girls sold into servitude. Into worse. She braced herself for a monster. For chains. For pain. But when the car stopped and the driver opened her door, no one was waiting. Just a middle-aged woman in a crisp uniform who bowed slightly and said in accented English, "Welcome, Miss Zara. Follow me, please." Zara followed because what else could she do? Through marble hallways that echoed with every footstep. Past rooms with doors closed tight. Up a grand staircase that split in two directions like a fork in a road. The woman led her to the third floor, to a room at the end of a long corridor, and opened the door to reveal a space that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. King-size bed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a garden lit by soft lights. A bathroom with a tub big enough to drown in. "This is your room," the woman said. "Mr. Park asks that you do not enter the east wing. That is his private area. Meals will be brought to you. If you need anything, press the button by the bed. Someone will come." Then she left. Just like that. No explanation. No threats. No commands. Zara stood in the center of the room, waiting for the trap to spring. But nothing happened. The door wasn't locked. The window wasn't barred. She was alone. And that somehow was more terrifying than anything else. She didn't sleep that first night. She sat by the window, watching the garden below, waiting for someone to come. To explain. To hurt her. But no one came. When dawn broke, a soft knock sounded at her door, and a young woman entered with a tray of food. Rice. Soup. Banchan in small dishes. Tea that smelled like jasmine. "Mr. Park has already left for work," the woman said quietly. "He will return late." Zara stared at her. "I haven't even met him." The woman's expression didn't change. "He is very busy." Then she left. Zara didn't touch the food. She spent the day exploring the mansion like a prisoner mapping her cell. She counted the rooms. 14 on the first floor alone. She noted the exits. 3 main doors, all monitored by cameras. She studied the staff. They moved like ghosts, efficient and silent, never meeting her eyes for more than a second. And everywhere she went, she felt watched. Not by people, by the house itself, by the weight of something unsaid. When evening came, she heard a car pull up outside. Her pulse quickened. She moved to the top of the staircase and looked down into the foyer just as the front door opened. Park Tae-Joon stepped inside. Zara's breath caught. She didn't know what she'd expected. Someone older, maybe. Scarred. Ugly. A monster to match the rumors. But the man who walked through that door was young. Maybe 30. Tall and lean, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than her father's house. His face was sharp. Beautiful even. But cold. So cold it hurt to look at. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from owning everything and fearing nothing. His eyes swept the room with detached efficiency, and for a brief, breathless moment, they landed on her. Zara froze. His gaze was dark. Unreadable. Empty. He looked at her the way someone might look at a piece of furniture. Noted. Assessed. Dismissed. Then he glanced at his phone, said something in rapid Korean to one of the staff, and walked past the staircase without a word. Not a greeting. Not a question. Nothing. He disappeared into the east wing, and Zara heard a door close with a soft, final click. That was it. Her first meeting with the man who owned her. And he hadn't even spoken to her. The days that followed blurred into a strange, suffocating routine. Tae-Joon left before dawn. Returned after midnight. She saw him only in passing. A shadow moving through hallways. A silhouette behind frosted glass. A voice speaking Korean in low, clipped tones on the phone. He never looked at her. Never acknowledged her existence. It was like living with a ghost. Zara tried, at first, to understand. She waited by the stairs one morning, determined to speak to him. To demand answers. To ask why she was here, what he wanted from her, what kind of sick game this was. But when he appeared, walking briskly toward the door with his assistant trailing behind him, she opened her mouth and nothing came out. Because the look on his face was so detached, so utterly devoid of emotion, that she felt like she'd already been erased. He passed her without a glance, and she stood there, feeling smaller than she ever had in her life. So she stopped trying. She ate the meals that were brought to her. She explored the mansion until she knew every corner, every hidden room, every painting on the walls. She discovered a library on the second floor, filled with books in Korean, English, Japanese. She spent hours there, losing herself in stories about people whose lives made sense, who had choices, who weren't trapped in gilded cages with men who looked through them like glass. But the longer she stayed, the more she noticed things. Strange things. The security, for one. Cameras in every hallway. Guards stationed at every entrance. Motion sensors in the garden. It wasn't just wealth. It was paranoia. And then there were the locks. Her door didn't lock from the inside. Only from the outside. She discovered this one night when she tried to secure it before bed and found the mechanism reversed. She was being kept in. And the staff. They were kind, but distant. They answered her questions with polite non-answers. They watched her with something that looked almost like pity. One of the housekeepers, a woman in her 50s named Mrs. Cho, was the only one who spoke to her with any warmth. "You are safe here," she said one afternoon while tidying Zara's room. Zara looked up from her book. "Safe from what?" Mrs. Cho hesitated. Then she smiled sadly. "From the world, dear. From the world." It wasn't an answer. But it was something. 3 months passed like this. 3 months of silence. Of isolation. Of living in a beautiful prison with a man who treated her like she didn't exist. Zara told herself she hated him. It was easier that way. Easier to hate than to feel the creeping, insidious confusion that came with the small things she started to notice. Like the way fresh flowers appeared in her room every week. Not because she asked. Just because. Like the way her favorite books, ones she'd mentioned in passing to Mrs. Cho, started appearing in the library. Like the way, on the rare occasions when she glimpsed him in the hallway, his eyes would flicker toward her for just a fraction of a second before he looked away. As if he was checking. As if he cared. But that was impossible, wasn't it? She began to study him the way he refused to study her. She learned his patterns. The way he took his coffee black, no sugar. The way he ran his hand through his hair when he was stressed. The way his jaw tightened when his phone rang late at night. The way he moved through the mansion like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. She learned that he worked constantly, that he slept little, that he received visitors at odd hours, men in suits who looked as dangerous as he did, who spoke in hushed tones in his office before leaving in the dead of night. She learned that he had nightmares. She could hear them sometimes, through the walls that separated their wings. The sound of him waking, gasping, the creak of floorboards as he paced his room until dawn. She learned that he was alone. Truly, devastatingly alone. No friends visited. No family called. No lovers spent the night. Just business. Just work. Just the crushing solitude of a man who had everything except the one thing that mattered. Connection. And despite herself, despite her anger and confusion and fear, Zara found herself wondering about him. About the man behind the ice. About what had made him this way. One afternoon, she found Mrs. Cho in the library, dusting the shelves with careful precision. "Can I ask you something?" Zara said. Mrs. Cho glanced at her, then nodded. "Of course, dear. How long have you worked for Mr. Park?" 15 years. Since he was just a boy, really. 18 years old and already running his father's company. What happened to his father? Mrs. Cho's expression darkened. He died. Suddenly. Heart attack, they said. But Mr. Tae-Joon never believed it. He thinks it was murder. Business rivals. Enemies. The kind of people who don't leave evidence behind. Zara's chest tightened. And his mother? She left when he was young. Couldn't handle the pressure. The danger. The life that came with being married to a man like his father. She disappeared one day and never came back. That's terrible. It made him what he is, Mrs. Cho said quietly. Hard. Closed off. He learned early that everyone leaves. That trusting people gets you killed. So he stopped trusting. Stopped letting anyone in. Then why? Zara stopped herself. But Mrs. Cho understood. Why did he bring you here? She smiled sadly. I've wondered that myself. In 15 years, I've never seen him bring a woman to this house. Never seen him show interest in anything except work and survival. But then you arrived, and something changed. He ignores me. He protects you, Mrs. Cho corrected gently. Every guard in this house has orders to keep you safe. Every camera is monitored for threats. Every meal is checked before it reaches you. He's terrified something will happen to you. But why? Mrs. Cho looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Because, my dear, you're the first thing he's cared about in a very long time. And caring terrifies him more than any enemy ever could. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She paced her room, Mrs. Cho's words echoing in her mind. Around 2 in the morning, she gave up and decided to go to the library. Maybe reading would quiet her thoughts. She wrapped herself in a robe and stepped into the hallway, moving quietly so as not to wake anyone. The mansion was different at night. Shadows stretched long and strange. The silence felt heavier, more oppressive. She made her way to the second floor, pushed open the library door, and froze. Tae-Joon was there. Standing by the window, staring out at the garden, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was still in his dress shirt and pants, but the shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with a few scattered scars. His hair was disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked exhausted. Human. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Zara found her voice. I didn't know you'd be here. I can leave now. The word was sharp. Then softer. Stay. Please. It was the first word he'd spoken directly to her in 3 months. Zara's heart hammered. She stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind her. Can't sleep? She asked. He laughed, a bitter sound. I never sleep. Nightmares. His eyes snapped to hers, surprised. How did you? The walls are thin. I hear you sometimes. Pacing. At night. He turned away, took a long drink from his glass. I'm sorry if I've disturbed you. You haven't. She moved closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Why would you care? His voice was rough, almost angry. I've done nothing but ignore you for 3 months. Kept you here like a prisoner. Given you no explanation. No comfort. Why would you care if I'm okay? I don't know, Zara admitted. But I do. Silence stretched between them, thick and charged. Then Tae-Joon spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You should hate me. Maybe I should. But I don't. You don't even know me. Then let me know you. He shook his head. You don't want to know me, Zara. Trust me. It was the first time he'd said her name. It sounded different in his voice. Intimate. Like a secret. Why not? She pressed. What are you so afraid of? He turned to face her fully, and the look in his eyes stole her breath. Pain. Raw and deep and endless. I'm afraid, he said, that if I let you in, I'll never let you go. And that's not fair to you. You deserve freedom. Choice. A life that isn't controlled by someone like me. Someone like you? A monster. Zara took another step forward. They were close now. Close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched into his features, the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. You're not a monster. You don't know what I've done. Then tell me. No. It was firm. Final. But Zara was tired of finality. Tired of walls and silence and half-truths. Why did you bring me here? She demanded. The truth. No more deflection. No more avoidance. Why am I here? Tae-Joon stared at her for a long moment. Then he set down his glass, ran both hands through his hair, and let out a breath that sounded like surrender. Because the alternative was worse. So much worse. And I couldn't, his voice cracked. I couldn't let that happen to you. What alternative? Zara pressed. What was going to happen to me? Tae-Joon's hands clenched into fists. Your father didn't owe money to legitimate lenders, Zara. He owed money to the Jade Serpent Syndicate. Do you know what that is? She shook her head. They're traffickers. They move women across Asia. Sell them to the highest bidder. Use them until there's nothing left. Then they dispose of them. The room tilted. Zara's legs felt weak. No. My father wouldn't. Your father was desperate. Your brother needed surgery. Expensive surgery. He didn't know who he was borrowing from until it was too late. When he couldn't pay, they came to collect. And their payment was you. Ball rose in her throat. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to breathe. They were going to take you, Tae-Joon continued, his voice flat now, like he was reading from a report. Smuggle you out of the country. You would have disappeared. No trace. No trail. Just another girl lost to a system that doesn't care. But I'm here, Zara whispered. How? I have informants. People embedded in organizations like the syndicate. One of them tipped me off the night before you were supposed to be moved. I intercepted the transaction. Paid 3 times what they were asking. Took you instead. Zara's mind spun. Why? Why would you do that? Because I've spent the last 5 years dismantling trafficking rings. It's what I do when I'm not running my company. I use my resources, my money, my connections to find these organizations and destroy them. I've freed over 200 women. Shut down 7 major operations. And when I saw your file, saw your picture, saw that you were just a girl whose only crime was having a desperate father, he stopped. Swallowed hard. I couldn't let it happen. Not to you. Zara felt tears streaming down her face. So you saved me. I tried to. But you brought me here. Locked me up, to protect you, he interrupted. The syndicate doesn't forgive. They've been hunting you since the day I took you. Every security measure, every guard, every camera, every lock, it's all to keep them out. To keep you alive. Then why didn't you tell me? Her voice broke. Why let me think I was a prisoner? A possession. Because telling you meant involving you. Meant making you live in fear. And I thought, he laughed bitterly. I thought if I kept my distance, if I didn't get attached, it would be easier. I could keep you safe without what? Tae-Joon looked at her, and the expression on his face was devastating. Without falling for you, he whispered. But I failed. From the moment I saw you standing on those stairs, looking at me with those eyes, I knew. I knew you were going to destroy me. Zara's breath caught. Tae-Joon, I don't love like normal people, Zara. His voice was urgent now, desperate. I don't do casual or moderate or healthy. When I care about something, I obsess. I consume. I become possessive and jealous and controlling. I've destroyed every relationship I've ever had because I can't let go. I can't give people space. I can't. He stopped, breathing hard. When I saw you, I knew. I knew that if I let myself feel what I was already starting to feel, I'd never let you go. I'd become the monster you feared. I'd trap you here forever, and you'd grow to hate me, and I'd rather die than watch that happen. So you stayed away, Zara said softly. I tried. God, I tried. But every day, I checked on you. Made sure you were eating. Made sure you were safe. I knew everything about you. What books you read. What foods you liked. What time you went to bed. I stood outside your door at night just to hear you breathe. He stopped himself, shaking his head. See? Monster. Zara took a step forward. Then another. Until she was standing right in front of him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. You're not a monster, she said firmly. What you're describing isn't monstrosity. It's trauma. It's fear of abandonment. It's dangerous. Maybe. But it's also human. And fixable. With help. With work. With someone who understands. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. She reached up, and he flinched like he expected her to strike him. But instead, she gently touched his face. His eyes slammed shut. His entire body went rigid. Zara, don't, why not? Because if you touch me, if you look at me like that, I won't be able to maintain the distance. I won't be able to pretend I don't. He opened his eyes, and the raw need in them made her knees weak. You need to go. Now. Before I do something we'll both regret. What if I don't want to go? His hands came up, hovering near her waist, but not quite touching. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking you to stop treating me like I'm fragile. Like I can't make my own choices. Like I don't get a say in this. You deserve better than me. That's not your decision to make. They stood there, suspended in a moment that felt like it could tip either way. Then Zara made her choice. She rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. For a heartbeat, Tae-Joon didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then something in him shattered. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her against him with a desperate intensity. He kissed her back like he was drowning and she was air. Like he'd been starving and she was sustenance. Like 3 months of restraint had finally broken and he had nothing left to lose. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. I can't lose you, he whispered. If something happens to you, if they take you, I will burn this entire city to the ground. I will kill everyone who ever even thought about hurting you. I will, Tae-Joon. He stopped. I'm right here. And I'm not going anywhere. You should, he said, but his arms tightened around her. You should run as far from me as you can. Well, I'm not very good at doing what I should. A broken laugh escaped him. Zara, stop trying to protect me from yourself. Stop treating your feelings like they're a disease. You're not dangerous to me. You're just, she cupped his face in both hands. You're just someone who's been hurt. Someone who's afraid. And I understand that. Because I've been afraid too. Every day for 3 months I've been terrified and confused and angry. But this, she gestured between them. This isn't scary. This is the first real thing I've felt since I got here. I'll want to know where you are all the time. I'll struggle to let you leave. We'll work on it. Together. With boundaries. With communication. With help if we need it. And if I can't change, then we'll figure it out. But you don't get to make decisions for me. You don't get to push me away for my own good. I'm an adult. I get to choose what risks I take. Tae-Joon stared at her like she was something miraculous. Something impossible. You're sure? I'm terrified, Zara admitted. But I'm sure. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed her again, slower this time. Gentler. Like he was memorizing her. When they parted, he said quietly, I need to tell you everything. About the syndicate. About the danger. About why you can't leave yet. Okay. Not tonight. Tonight he pulled her close again. Tonight I just need to hold you. If that's okay. More than okay. They settled onto one of the library's leather couches, Zara curled against Tae-Joon's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. Outside, the first hints of dawn were touching the sky. "I heard you," he said quietly. "When you walked past my wing at night. When you spent hours in this library. When you talked to Mrs. Cho. I heard all of it. And every time, I had to stop myself from going to you. Why? Because you deserved peace. Space to heal from what had happened. And he stroked her hair gently. "I was afraid that if I spoke to you, if I let myself be near you, I'd never be able to let you go. Maybe I don't want you to let me go. You say that now. But when you understand the full extent of what you're getting into, then I'll decide then. Stop trying to make my choices for me." A smile tugged at his lips. "You're stubborn. I learned from the best. You're not exactly flexible. I'm trying. I know." She pressed a kiss to his jaw. "And that's enough. For now." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun rise through the library windows. Then Zara said, "Tell me about the nightmares." Tae-Joon tensed. "Zara, please. I want to understand." He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Then, I dream about my father. About the night he died. I was there, you know. In the house. I heard the struggle. But by the time I reached him, it was too late. He was already," his voice cracked. "And I dream about all the women I couldn't save. The ones who were killed before I could reach them. The ones who took their own lives after they were freed because they couldn't live with what had been done to them. I see their faces. Every single one. That's not your fault. Isn't it? If I'd been faster, smarter, better, you'd still be human. You can't save everyone, Tae-Joon. No matter how much you want to. No matter how hard you try. Then what's the point? The point is that you try anyway. That you save the ones you can. That you give them a chance at a life they wouldn't have had otherwise. That matters. You matter." He held her tighter. "I don't know what I did to deserve you. You saved my life. You gave me safety when I had none. You're giving me choice when I thought I'd never have it again. That's more than enough." As the sun fully rose, painting the library in shades of gold and amber, Zara felt something shift. For 3 months, she'd been living in limbo. Trapped between fear and confusion, between anger and helplessness. But now, curled in the arms of a man who was just as broken as she felt something else. Hope. It was fragile. Tentative. But it was there. "What happens now?" she asked. Tae-Joon was quiet for a moment. "Now, we figure it out. Together. I tell you everything. About the threats. About what we're up against." And then he paused. "Then you decide. If you want to stay. If you want to leave. If you want to build something with me despite all the reasons you shouldn't. I already know my answer. Let me tell you everything first. Then decide." Zara nodded. "Okay. But Tae-Joon." "Yes. Whatever you tell me, whatever comes next, know that you're not alone in this anymore. We face it together. Or not at all." His arms tightened around her, and she felt him press a kiss to the top of her head. "Together," he whispered. "I like the sound of that." Over the following days, Tae-Joon kept his promise. He told her everything. About the Jade Serpent Syndicate and their operations across 6 countries. About the women they'd trafficked and the lives they'd destroyed. About his 5-year mission to dismantle them piece by piece, using his wealth and connections to infiltrate their networks and free their victims. He told her about the danger. About the attempts on his life. About the constant security and the paranoia that came with knowing powerful, vengeful people wanted him dead. He told her about the informants he'd lost. The close calls. The times he'd barely escaped with his life. He showed her the scars on his body, bullet wounds, knife wounds, marks from fights she couldn't even imagine. And he told her about her father. About how he'd tracked down the man after taking Zara, had confronted him, had seen the genuine remorse and shame in his eyes. He didn't know, Tae-Joon said quietly. Not really. He was desperate and foolish, and he made a terrible choice. But he didn't understand what he was signing you away to until it was too late. And when I told him you were safe, that I would protect you, Tae-Joon's jaw tightened. He cried. Asked me to tell you he was sorry. That he'd spend the rest of his life trying to make it right. Zara didn't know how to feel about that. The anger was still there, but it was complicated now. tangled with pity and sadness and the understanding that her father had been faced with an impossible choice. Save his son or save his daughter. And he'd chosen wrong. Have you spoken to him? She asked. Once. To tell him you were alive and safe. He wanted to see you, but Tae-Joon hesitated. I told him it wasn't safe yet. That any contact could be traced back to you. Put you in more danger. Was that true? Or did you just not want me to have contact with my family? It was a fair question. A test. Tae-Joon met her eyes. Both. It's genuinely dangerous. But he swallowed. I also wasn't ready to share you. To risk you deciding to leave. That was wrong of me. Selfish. And I'm sorry. The honesty broke something open in Zara's chest. Thank you for telling me the truth. Always. From now on. No more secrets. No more avoiding me? A small smile. No more avoiding you. Even though you're extremely distracting. Distracting how? He pulled her into his lap, and she went willingly. Like this. I'm trying to explain serious security protocols, and all I can think about is how much I want to kiss you. Well, we can't have that. Security is very important. Incredibly important. Life or death, even. Absolutely. They stared at each other for a beat. Then both broke into laughter, and the tension dissolved. When they sobered, Tae-Joon said seriously, the syndicate knows I have you. They've been probing our defenses for months. Testing weak points. It's only a matter of time before they make a real move. So what do? We prepare. We stay vigilant. And we wait for them to make a mistake. That sounds terrifying. It is. Which is why I'll understand if you want to leave. I can arrange for you to disappear. New identity. New country. Enough money to start over. You'd be safe. And alone. But safe. Zara cupped his face. I'm not leaving. We're in this together, remember. Zara, no. You don't get to push me away now. You don't get to make that decision for me. I know the risks. I understand the danger. And I'm choosing to stay. With you. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. You're sure? Completely. Because once you commit to this, once you're mine, he stopped himself. Once we're together, I won't let you go easily. I'll fight for you. Fight to keep you. Even if you change your mind. Even if Tae-Joon. Breathe. I'm not going anywhere. And when you spiral like this, when the obsessive thoughts start, you tell me. We work through them. Together. That's how this works. He closed his eyes, pressed his forehead to hers. I'm going to need therapy, aren't I? We both probably do. Trauma bonding isn't exactly the healthiest foundation for a relationship. But it's our foundation. But it's ours, she agreed. And we'll build something strong on top of it. Something real. Something real, he echoed. I like the sound of that. The weeks that followed were a strange mix of normal and surreal. Zara was no longer confined to certain areas of the mansion. She explored freely, spent time with Tae-Joon when he wasn't working, learned about his business and his mission. She met his security team. Learned self-defense from his head of security, a terrifying woman named Agent Kim who could kill someone with her pinky finger and frequently threatened to demonstrate. She sat in on meetings where Tae-Joon strategized with his informants, tracking syndicate movements, planning interventions. She saw firsthand the scope of what he was doing, the lives he was saving, the evil he was fighting. And she fell deeper, not just for the man he was, but for what he represented. Someone who had every reason to be bitter and cold and selfish, who instead chose to use his power to help people who had no power of their own. You're staring, Tae-Joon said one evening. They were in his office, him working through paperwork, her curled in a chair reading. I'm admiring. It's distracting. Good. He looked up, eyes warm with affection. Come here. She set down her book and moved to him. He pulled her into his lap, wrapped his arms around her waist. I need a break, he murmured against her neck. You've been working for 6 hours straight. Exactly. I need a break. He kissed her neck, her jaw, the corner of her mouth. Entertain me. Zara laughed. I'm not a performing monkey. No, you're much more interesting than a performing monkey. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm terrible at romance. You should know that going in. Lucky for you, I don't need romance. I just need honesty. And you. Preferably without the workaholic tendencies, but I'll take what I can get. He smiled against her skin. I'm trying to be better about that. Work-life balance and all that. Trying is good. Actually succeeding would be better. I'll work on it. He pulled back to look at her. You make me want to be better. At everything. That's new for me. Good new or bad new? Terrifying new. But good. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to wake up and realize what you've gotten yourself into and run. Still not happening. You're very stubborn. You've mentioned that. Multiple times. It's one of my favorite things about you. One of. She raised an eyebrow. What are the others? He pretended to think about it. Your terrible taste in men, obviously. She smacked his shoulder. You're impossible. And yet you're still here. Against my better judgment. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and when they broke apart, both breathless, he said softly, "Thank you." For what? For staying. For choosing this. For choosing me. I know it's not easy. Nothing worth having ever is. She traced the line of his jaw. Besides, you're worth it. Even when you're being overprotective and checking the security feeds obsessively and hovering. I don't hover. You absolutely hover. Mrs. Cho told me you asked her 17 times yesterday if I'd eaten lunch. He had the grace to look sheepish. I wanted to make sure you were taking care of yourself. I'm 23, not 5. I know how to feed myself. I know. He sighed. I'm working on it. The control issues. It's harder than I thought it would be. I know. And I appreciate that you're trying. Just remember, I'm your partner, not your responsibility. There's a difference. Partner, he repeated, testing the word. I like that. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Zara's head resting on his shoulder, his hand running through her hair in soothing strokes. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire body went rigid. What is it? Zara asked, sitting up. His expression had gone cold. Dangerous. They found us. Her heart stuttered. The syndicate? One of my informants just sent me a message. They're planning something. Soon. Within the week. Planning what? He looked at her, and the fear in his eyes terrified her more than anything. They're coming for you. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Extra security. Reinforced protocols. Contingency plans. Tae-Joon barely slept, spent every waking moment coordinating with his team, fortifying their defenses. Zara tried to help where she could, but mostly she just watched him spiral. Watched the obsessive, protective side of him that he'd been working so hard to control come roaring back to the surface. On the third night, she found him in the security room at 2 a.m, staring at camera feeds with bloodshot eyes. Tae-Joon, she said gently. You need to sleep. I can't. Not when, he gestured helplessly at the screens. Not when they could strike at any moment. You have 12 armed guards, a state-of-the-art security system, and Agent Kim, who is frankly terrifying enough to be her own army. I'm safe. You don't know that. Neither do you. You can't control everything, no matter how hard you try. I can try. And you'll make yourself sick in the process. She moved behind him, wrapped her arms around his shoulders. Come to bed. Please. Even just for a few hours. What if something happens while I'm sleeping? Then your team will wake you. That's literally what they're here for. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he covered her hands with his. I'm terrified of losing you. I know. If they take you, if they hurt you. They won't. Because you've done everything possible to keep me safe. And because I'm not as helpless as you think I am. Agent Kim's been teaching me things, remember? A ghost of a smile. She told me you broke her nose during practice yesterday. It was an accident. She was proud. Said you have good instincts. Well, there you go. I can take care of myself. A little. He turned in his chair, pulled her into his lap. I know you can. That's not the point. The point is you shouldn't have to. You should be safe. Free. Living a normal life. Not hiding in a fortress because I dragged you into my war. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this, remember. I should have tried harder to push you away. And I would have pushed back harder. We've been over this, Tae-Joon. You don't get to make decisions for me. Even protective ones. Even ones you think are for my own good. He rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to be insufferable until this is over, aren't I? Probably. But I'll love you anyway. The words slipped out before she could stop them. The room went completely still. Zara's eyes widened. I mean I did, but I wasn't planning to say it like that. Say it again, Tae-Joon whispered. His hands were trembling where they held her. I love you, she said, slower this time. Meaning it. I love you, and I know it's fast and complicated and probably a terrible idea, but I do. I love you. He kissed her like she was oxygen. Like she was everything. When they finally broke apart, there were tears on his cheeks. I love you, he said, voice breaking. I've loved you since the moment I saw you. I've been in love with you for 3 months, and it's been torture not being able to tell you, not being able to. She kissed him again, softer this time. I know. We're completely insane, aren't we? Absolutely. But I'm okay with that if you are. More than okay. He stood, lifting her with him. Come on. You're right. I need sleep. And I need you. Now that's the best idea you've had all week. They went to his room, the first time she'd been in his private space. It was surprisingly sparse. Minimal furniture. No personal touches. Like he'd never really lived there, just existed. It's very you, she said, looking around. Meaning? Cold. Controlled. No evidence of a soul. He winced. That's harsh. But accurate. Don't worry, we'll fix it. Add some color. Some life. Maybe a plant or two. I kill plants. Of course you do. She pulled him toward the bed. Come on. Sleep now. Interior decorating later. They lay down together, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her. For a few moments, there was just the sound of their breathing, the steady beat of his heart. Zara, he said quietly. If something happens, if they get through somehow. They won't. But if they do, I need you to run. Don't try to fight them. Don't try to be brave. Just run. Get out. Get safe. Promise me. She lifted her head to look at him. Only if you promise the same thing. Don't do anything stupid trying to protect me. Don't throw your life away. We survive together or not at all. That's not. Promise me, Tae-Joon. Or I won't promise you anything. He stared at her for a long moment. Then sighed. You're impossible. I learned from the best. Now promise. I promise. We survive together. Good. She settled back against his chest. Now sleep. Everything else can wait until morning. Within minutes, exhaustion claimed him. Zara listened to his breathing even out, felt the tension slowly drain from his body. She stayed awake longer, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. About the chain of events, the impossible circumstances, the way two broken people had somehow found each other in the darkness. She should hate him, or fear him, or resent him. But she didn't. She loved him. Flaws and all. Obsessive tendencies and all. Trauma and all. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough. The attack came on the 4th night. Zara woke to the sound of gunfire and alarm screaming. Tae-Joon was already up, moving with military precision, pulling on clothes, grabbing weapons she hadn't even known he kept in his room. Stay here, he commanded. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Agent Kim. Understand? Tae-Joon. Understand. His eyes were wild. Desperate. Yes, I understand. He kissed her hard and fast. I love you. Remember that. No matter what happens, I love you. Then he was gone, and Zara was alone with the sound of chaos outside. She locked the door with shaking hands, then looked around the room for anything she could use as a weapon. Found a heavy lamp. A letter opener. Better than nothing. The minutes crawled by. More gunfire. Shouting in Korean and English. The sound of something exploding. Then silence. Terrible, suffocating silence. Zara pressed her ear to the door, trying to hear anything. Footsteps. Voices. Something. Nothing. Then a soft knock. Zara? It's Agent Kim. Open the door. Relief flooded through her. She unlocked the door and pulled it open. And froze. Agent Kim was there. But she wasn't alone. Behind her were 3 men in tactical gear, and they were holding guns. Not security. Enemies. I'm sorry, Agent Kim said, and she actually looked it. They have my daughter. I didn't have a choice. Before Zara could react, one of the men grabbed her. She fought, using everything Agent Kim had taught her, managed to break free for a split second. Then something hard connected with her skull, and the world went dark. She woke in hell. Not literally, but close enough. A warehouse that smelled like rust and decay and old blood. Her hands were bound behind her back. Her head throbbed. And standing in front of her was a man in an expensive suit with a smile that made her skin crawl. Miss Zara, he said in perfect, unaccented English. Finally. We've been looking for you for quite some time. 3 other men stood behind him, armed and watching her with dead eyes. These were people who had done terrible things and felt nothing. She could see it in their faces. Where's Tae-Joon? She demanded. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Alive. For now. Though I imagine he's quite distressed. The man circled her slowly. Park Tae-Joon has been a thorn in our side for 5 years. He's cost us millions. Freed hundreds of our assets. Destroyed operations that took years to build. Tonight, that ends. He'll come for me. Oh, I'm counting on it. This warehouse is surrounded by my men. Every entrance is covered. Every exit is blocked. The moment he arrives, and he will arrive, because he's predictable in his obsession with you, we'll kill him. And then we'll take you somewhere he can't follow. Somewhere you'll beg for death long before we grant it. Fear clawed at her throat, but Zara forced herself to stay calm. To think. You're making a mistake. The man laughed. Am I? Do tell. You're underestimating him. He's not just some lovesick fool who'll walk into your trap. He's smart. Strategic. And he has resources you can't imagine. Had resources. Agent Kim gave us everything. His security protocols. His team locations. His contingency plans. We know everything, Miss Zara. And we've planned for everything. Except one thing. And what's that? She met his eyes. He loves me. And men in love are dangerous in ways you can't predict or control. They don't follow logic. They don't stick to plans. They do whatever it takes. And Tae-Joon. She smiled despite her fear. He'll do whatever it takes. The man's expression darkened. He raised his hand, and one of the men stepped forward, pulling out a knife. Perhaps we should send Mr. Park some motivation. A finger, maybe. Or an ear. Something to encourage him to hurry. The knife moved toward her face. And then the entire side of the warehouse exploded. Not a door opening. Not a window breaking. The wall itself crumbling as a black SUV crashed through it, metal shrieking, concrete dust filling the air in choking clouds. The vehicle screeched to a halt. The driver's door flew open. And Park Tae-Joon stepped out. He wasn't in a suit. He was in black tactical gear, a gun in each hand, blood already streaked across his face from God knows what fight he'd already been through. And his eyes. His eyes were the eyes of a man who had absolutely nothing left to lose. Get away from her, he said, voice deadly calm. Right now. The syndicate leader laughed, recovering from his shock. You're outnumbered, Park. I have 20 men in this building. All armed. All trained. You're one man. Be smart. Walk away. Tae-Joon tilted his head slightly. You think I'm alone? On cue, the remaining windows shattered as his security team came through simultaneously. Agent Kim wasn't with them. She'd been compromised. But there were others. 8 highly trained operatives against 20 criminals. The odds were still bad. But they were better. Last chance, Tae-Joon said, his eyes never leaving Zara. Let her go. Walk away. Live. You don't give the orders here, the leader snarled. He grabbed Zara, pulled her in front of him like a shield, knife to her throat. You want her? Come get her. But we both know how this ends. Tae-Joon's expression didn't change. But Zara saw it, the flash of absolute terror in his eyes. The way his hands tightened on his weapons. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He dropped his guns. raised his hands. Take me instead, he said. That's what you really want, isn't it? To make me pay. To punish me for what I've done to your operations. So take me. Let her go. Take me. Tae-Joon, no. Zara shouted. He didn't look at her. Couldn't. She's innocent. She's not part of this. I am. So take me. The syndicate leader considered this. Smiled slowly. Interesting. You'd really trade yourself for her. Without hesitation. How noble. The knife pressed harder against Zara's throat. But I think I'll keep you both. Kill you in front of her. Make her watch. Then take her anyway. Seems more fitting, don't you think? That's when Zara made her move. Agent Kim had taught her many things. How to break holds. How to fight dirty. How to use an opponent's confidence against them. She slammed her head backward into the leader's face, felt his nose crunch, and dropped to the ground as the knife sliced through empty air. Tae-Joon moved before the man could recover. Crossed the distance in a heartbeat. The fight that followed was brutal and efficient. Within seconds, the leader was on the ground, disarmed, Tae-Joon's gun pressed to his temple. Call them off, Tae-Joon said quietly. Now. Around them, the warehouse had erupted into chaos. Gunfire. Fighting. Tae-Joon's team against the syndicate's men. The leader spat blood. Kill me. There'll be 10 more to take my place. I don't care about them. I care about making sure you never touch her again. And he pulled the trigger. Zara gasped as the body dropped. Tae-Joon didn't even look at it. He was already moving toward her, dropping to his knees, cutting her bindings with shaking hands. Are you hurt? His hands roamed over her face, her arms, her body, checking for injuries. Did he? I'm okay, she managed. I'm okay. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. I thought I lost you. I thought, when I couldn't find you, when I realized Kim had betrayed us. His voice broke completely. I'm here, Zara whispered, holding him just as tight. I'm right here. We're okay. Around them, the sounds of fighting were dying down. Tae-Joon's team was winning. The syndicate members were being subdued, arrested, neutralized. Sirens wailed in the distance. Authorities Tae-Joon had finally agreed to involve, arriving to clean up the mess. But Tae-Joon didn't move. He just held her, face buried in her hair, breathing like he'd just run a marathon. I killed him, he said quietly. Right in front of you. Does that scare you? Zara pulled back enough to look at him. At the blood on his hands, some his, some not. At the violence still simmering in his eyes. At the man who had just destroyed an entire criminal operation to save her. No, she said firmly. It doesn't. It should. You're not a monster for protecting the people you love. You're human. You're mine. And I love you exactly as you are. Something in his expression crumbled. He kissed her desperately, like he needed to prove to himself she was real, she was alive, she was here. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Let's go home, he whispered. Yes, let's go home. The aftermath was messy. Investigations. Depositions. Media attention that Tae-Joon's lawyers worked overtime to suppress. The Jade Serpent Syndicate was dismantled, its leaders arrested, its operations shut down. Agent Kim's daughter was found safe. Kim herself was arrested, but given leniency for her cooperation. Her betrayal had been coerced, and she'd provided crucial information that helped take down the remaining syndicate members. Tae-Joon threw himself into helping the freed victims, using his resources to get them medical care, therapy, new identities, fresh starts. It consumed him for months. And Zara was there through all of it. His partner. His anchor. The one thing that kept him grounded when the weight of everything threatened to drown him. They both started therapy. Individual and couples. It was hard. Painful. They had to confront things they'd been avoiding. Trauma they'd been burying. Patterns they'd been perpetuating. Tae-Joon worked on his control issues, his obsessive tendencies, his need to know where Zara was every second of every day. It didn't disappear overnight. But slowly, gradually, he learned to trust. To let go. To understand that loving someone didn't mean controlling them. Zara worked on her own trauma. The anger at her father. The fear that had been living in her chest since the day she was sold. The tendency to minimize her own needs to avoid conflict. She learned to set boundaries. To demand what she deserved. To recognize that being loved didn't mean being protected from everything. They fought sometimes. About his work hours. About her desire for more independence. About whose turn it was to pick the movie, because even in the midst of healing from profound trauma, some arguments were just mundane and silly. But they always came back to each other. Always chose each other. Always remembered what they'd survived to be together. 6 months after the warehouse, on a quiet evening in the mansion's garden, Tae-Joon asked Zara to marry him. It wasn't elaborate. No grand gesture. Just the two of them under the cherry blossoms, and him dropping to one knee with a ring he'd designed himself. "I know I'm not perfect," he said. "I know I still struggle. I know I'm still learning how to love someone in a healthy way. But I want to spend the rest of my life trying. With you. If you'll have me." Zara pulled him to his feet, kissed him until they were both breathless. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. Because you're not perfect. Neither am I. But we're perfect for each other. And that's all that matters." They got married 3 months later. Small ceremony. Just close friends and the staff who had become family. Mrs. Cho cried through the entire thing. Agent Kim, out on parole, sent a beautiful letter wishing them happiness. Zara's father wasn't there. She'd spoken to him once, a long phone call where he apologized and explained and begged for forgiveness. She'd given it, not because what he'd done was okay, but because holding on to anger was poisonous. But she wasn't ready to see him yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. Her brother sent a message. "I'm sorry for everything. I know you sacrificed for me. I'll spend my life trying to be worth it." She cried when she read it. But they were good tears. The years that followed weren't easy. Trauma doesn't heal on a schedule. There were still nightmares. Still hard days. Still moments when Tae-Joon spiraled and Zara had to talk him down. Still moments when Zara felt trapped and needed space and Tae-Joon had to force himself to step back. But there were also good days. Great days. Days when they laughed until they couldn't breathe. Days when they worked side by side, using their combined resources and passion to help others. Days when they simply existed together, reading in comfortable silence, two people who had found home in each other. Zara took over the day-to-day operations of the foundation, expanding its reach, helping hundreds of women rebuild their lives. She was good at it. Better than good. Brilliant. Tae-Joon stepped back from some of his business obligations to focus on the work that mattered. Fighting trafficking. Changing laws. Making the world incrementally safer. They traveled together. Saw the world. Created memories that weren't tinged with fear or pain. They fought for each other. With each other. They grew. Changed. Healed. And through it all, they loved. Not perfectly. Not always easily. But completely. Unconditionally. With everything they had. Because that's what love was. Not a fairy tale. Not a romance novel. But a choice. A daily, deliberate choice to stay. To fight. To grow. To forgive. To try. And they chose each other. Every single day. Years later, standing in the same garden where he'd proposed, where she'd been taken, where cherry blossoms fell like snow, Tae-Joon pulled Zara close. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Staying with me? Building this life?" Zara looked up at him. At the man who had saved her. Who had loved her. Who had fought his own demons to be worthy of her love in return. "Not for a single second," she said. "You. Never. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Even if the circumstances were terrible. Even if we probably shouldn't have worked. You're everything I never knew I needed." We're quite the pair, aren't we? Two broken people who somehow found each other in the darkness. And built something beautiful from the wreckage. Exactly. They stood there, wrapped in each other, in the peace they'd fought so hard to create. Because love wasn't about perfect circumstances or ideal timing or fairy tale beginnings. It was about two people deciding that despite everything, despite the trauma and the fear and the mess, they were better together than apart. It was about choosing someone every single day. About fighting for them. About letting them fight for you. It was about being seen. Known. Loved. Exactly as you were. And that's what Zara and Park Tae-Joon had. Not a perfect love, but a real one. A hard-won one. A love that had survived impossible odds and come out stronger. They were proof that your beginning doesn't determine your ending. That you can be dealt the worst hand and still build something extraordinary. That sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures. And in the end, that's all that mattered. Not how the story started, but how it continued. How it grew. How it became something neither of them could have imagined, but both of them wouldn't trade for anything in the world. Because Zara had been sold. But she'd bought her freedom with courage. And Tae-Joon had been broken. But he'd learned to heal. Together, they'd proven that love, real, messy, complicated, beautiful love, was worth fighting for. Worth risking everything for. Worth choosing every single day for the rest of their lives. And they did exactly that. For 5 years. For 10. For 20. For forever. They chose each other. In the darkness and the light. In the fear and the joy. In every moment that mattered and all the ones in between. And that choice, that simple, profound, daily choice, made all the difference. Thanks for watching this interesting stories. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating stories.